I canceled my sister's honeymoon in front of 300 guests, and I'd do it again. Let me tell you how I became the villain at the wedding I financed. How I went from dutiful older sister to the woman who ruined everything with a single phone call. But here's what nobody knew that night. Standing in that flower-adorned ballroom with champagne glasses raised in judgment in their eyes, I had been bleeding myself dry for years, and I was finally done. My name is Elena, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. The one who got a scholarship to state college while living at home to save money. The one who worked 2 jobs through my 20s, building a career in finance while everyone else was out living their best lives. The one who bought a modest condo instead of renting something trendy downtown. The boring one, according to my younger sister, Vivian. Vivian was the golden child. 3 years younger, infinitely more charming, with our mother's delicate features and our father's easy laugh. She breezed through life expecting things to work out, and somehow, they always did. Or rather, I always made sure they did. Our parents died when I was 28 and Vivian was 25. Car accident on a rainy Tuesday evening. One moment they existed, and the next they were gone, leaving behind a paid-off house, some savings, and 2 daughters who grieved in completely different ways. I threw myself into work, into being strong, into taking care of everything. Vivian fell apart beautifully, the way people do in movies, and everyone rushed to comfort her. I became her safety net without anyone asking me to. It just happened, the way water flows downhill. She needed help with the mortgage on the house we'd inherited, so I covered it. She wanted to go back to school for a degree in art history, so I paid her tuition. She met a guy named Derek at a gallery opening and fell in love with the intensity of a romance novel, and when he proposed after 8 months, I was the first person she called. Lena, he's perfect, she gushed over the phone, using the nickname only she called me. We're thinking a spring wedding. Something elegant, you know? Maybe at the Rosewood Estate? The Rosewood Estate. I'd looked it up after that call. $60,000 for the venue alone. I should have said something then. Should have told her that our parents' estate was meant to be split between us, that I'd been protecting her half while spending my own savings to support her lifestyle. Should have explained that I couldn't afford to fund a fairy tale wedding on top of everything else. But I didn't. Because Vivian looked at me with those bright eyes full of dreams, and I remembered being 25 and lost after our parents died. I remembered how I'd wished someone would make things easier for me, even though no one did. So I said yes. I said yes to the venue, yes to the dress that cost more than my car payment, yes to the flowers imported from Ecuador, yes to the 17-piece orchestra, yes to the honeymoon in Santorini that would cost more than most people's annual salary. I said yes to all of it, and I said nothing about how I was liquidating my retirement fund to pay for it. How I'd taken out a personal loan. How I was eating ramen 3 nights a week to save money while Vivian complained about the font choice on her invitation envelopes. My friends tried to warn me. You're enabling her, my best friend Marcus told me over coffee one Saturday. She's an adult, Elena. She needs to learn to live within her means. She's my baby sister, I'd replied, as if that explained everything. As if that justified everything. You're not her parent, he'd said gently. You're allowed to have boundaries. But I didn't know how to have boundaries with Vivian. Our whole lives, I'd been the strong one, the capable one, the one who fixed things. That was my role in our family story, and I didn't know how to be anything else. The wedding planning took over my life. Vivian would call me 3 times a day with emergencies. The bridesmaids' dresses were the wrong shade of blush. The calligrapher canceled. The cake designer didn't understand her vision. Each crisis required my time, my energy, and usually my money to solve. Derek, her fiancé, was pleasant but passive. He came from money, old money, the kind that whispers rather than shouts, but his family had rules about financial responsibility. They would contribute a fixed amount to the wedding, they declared, and nothing more. It was a lesson in living within one's means, Derek's mother had explained with a tight smile. Which meant the shortfall fell to me. It always did. I stopped dating because I didn't have time. I stopped going out with friends because I was always either working or dealing with wedding logistics. My boss commented on how tired I looked. My doctor warned me about my blood pressure. I ignored them all because the wedding was in 3 months, then 2 months, then 1 month, and I just had to make it through. The week before the wedding, I was running on 4 hours of sleep and cold brew coffee. I'd spent my lunch break at the bank, signing papers for a second loan because the final vendor payments were due and I'd miscalculated. The banker had looked at my financial records with barely concealed concern. "Ms. Torres, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Your debt-to-income ratio is..." "I'm sure," I'd interrupted, because what choice did I have? The wedding was in 6 days. The deposits were non-refundable. Backing out now would mean losing everything I'd already spent. Sunk cost fallacy, my finance brain whispered. You're committing a classic error. I signed anyway. The night before the wedding, Vivian came to my condo. I was surprised to see her. She'd been staying at a hotel with her bridesmaids for the full wedding weekend experience. She looked radiant, practically glowing with happiness, and I felt a surge of love so strong it hurt. "Lena, I just wanted to say thank you," she said, hugging me tight. "For everything. I know this year has been a lot of coordination, and you've been amazing." Coordination. As if I'd merely been scheduling appointments rather than depleting my life savings. "You're my sister," I said, "because that's what you say." "I'm happy for you." "I'm so lucky," she sighed. "Tomorrow is going to be perfect. Absolutely perfect." She wasn't wrong. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the kind of spring morning that feels like a blessing. The Rosewood estate looked like something from a magazine spread, with white roses climbing the stone walls and fairy lights strung through the trees, ready to twinkle when evening came. I'd gotten up at 5 to help with setup, even though there were coordinators hired for exactly that purpose. Old habits. I couldn't just stand by and watch, I needed to help, to ensure everything was perfect for Vivian's perfect day. The ceremony was at 4. By 2, I was in my bridesmaid dress, a pale blush number that Vivian had chosen and I had paid for, touching up my makeup in the bridal suite. Vivian was surrounded by her friends, laughing and drinking champagne, looking like a fairy tale princess in her Vera Wang gown. I'd paid for that too. Obviously. "Elena, smile," one of the bridesmaids chirped, pointing her phone at me. "You look so serious." I smiled. I'd had a lot of practice smiling when I didn't feel like it. The ceremony was beautiful. Vivian cried. Derek cried. I cried too, though I wasn't sure if it was from happiness or exhaustion or the crushing weight of the debt I'd taken on. When they were pronounced husband and wife, everyone cheered, and I cheered the loudest because she was my sister and this was her dream come true. The reception started at 6. The ballroom was transformed into an enchanted garden, with thousands of flowers and candles creating an atmosphere that was pure magic. The food was exquisite. The orchestra was flawless. People kept commenting on how it was the most beautiful wedding they'd ever attended. I stood near the bar, nursing a glass of wine I couldn't really afford to get drunk on because someone needed to stay sharp and handle any last-minute issues. I'd been on my feet for 13 hours. My shoes hurt. My face hurt from smiling. But it was almost over. Just a few more hours, and then I could go home and sleep for a week. That's when Vivian came up to me, Derek at her side, followed by a cluster of her friends. Her cheeks were flushed from champagne and happiness. The DJ was transitioning between songs, so there was a lull in the music, and her voice carried across our corner of the ballroom. "Lena," she called out, wrapping an arm around me. "My amazing big sister. Having fun?" I asked, trying to match her energy. "The best day of my life," she gushed, then turned to her friends. "Isn't she the best? So responsible. So reliable." There was something in her tone I couldn't quite read. A sharpness beneath the sweetness. "We should get you married off next," one of her friends laughed, a woman named Bethany who I'd never particularly liked. "Then we can do this all over again." "Oh God, can you imagine?" another friend chimed in. "Elena planning her own wedding? It would be like spreadsheets and budget meetings." They all laughed. Harmless teasing, probably. But I was tired, so tired, and the wine was hitting my empty stomach, and I felt something in my chest tighten. Vivian giggled, swaying slightly. "Speaking of which, Lena," she turned to face me fully, and there was a glint in her eye I'd never seen before. Something that looked almost like malice? No, that couldn't be right. This was my little sister. My Vivi. "Where is your husband, anyway?" she asked, her voice lilting, performative. "Oh, wait. That's right. You don't have one." The words hung in the air. Several people nearby turned to look. The music swelled back in, but it felt distant, like I was underwater. "Vivian," I started, but she wasn't done. "I mean, here you are, 31 years old, and you're still single. Still alone. Still just working." She said the word like it was something distasteful. "Don't you ever want more than that? Don't you ever want what I have?" Her friends shifted uncomfortably. Derek looked at his shoes. But Vivian kept going, emboldened by champagne and the high of being the center of attention. "I just think it's sad, you know? You're so focused on your career, on being independent, and meanwhile, life is passing you by. You'll end up one of those women who's married to her job. Alone. Is that really what you want?" Someone laughed nervously. The sound seemed to encourage her. "Maybe if you'd spent less time being boring and more time actually living, you'd have someone too. But I guess we can't all be lucky, right?" The words landed like slaps. Around us, I could feel people watching, waiting to see what I would do. Some looked amused. Others looked uncomfortable. No one said anything in my defense. My vision narrowed. My hands, I noticed distantly, were shaking. And then something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like a windshield after an impact, spiderwebbing out from a single point of pressure. And through that crack, something cold and clear flooded in. Clarity. I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. At her designer dress and her professional makeup and her elaborate updo. At the ballroom around us, dripping with expensive flowers and elegant details. At her new husband, who came from money and would always have money, standing silent while she humiliated me. I thought about my empty retirement account. My maxed out credit cards. The loan I'd taken out just last week. The ramen dinners and the skipped doctor's appointments and the friends I neglected because I was always taking care of Vivian. And I thought, enough. "Who bought you this wedding, Vivian?" I asked quietly. The smile flickered on her face. "What?" "This wedding. This beautiful, perfect, expensive wedding." My voice was steady, despite the pounding of my heart. "Who paid for it?" She waved a hand dismissively. We all contributed. No, I interrupted. We didn't. Derek's parents gave you $20,000, which covered about a third of the venue. And the rest? All of it? That was me. The color started to drain from her face. The dress you're wearing? I paid for it. The flowers in this room? I paid for them. The food everyone's eating, the orchestra everyone's enjoying, the photographer who's capturing every moment of your perfect day? I paid for all of it, Vivian. Me. The boring, single, career-focused sister who doesn't have a husband. People were definitely watching now. The music seemed too loud and too quiet at the same time. Lena, don't, she started, but I was done being interrupted. You want to know why I don't have a husband? Because I've spent the last 3 years taking care of you. Paying your bills. Funding your dreams. I drained my retirement account for this wedding, Vivian. I took out loans. I'm $60,000 in debt so you could have your fairy tale. Her mouth opened, then closed. Derek looked stricken. And you just stood here, in front of everyone, and mocked me for being alone. Made me the joke of your perfect evening. I pulled out my phone. So here's what's going to happen. My fingers moved almost independently, opening my banking app, finding the reservation confirmation for their honeymoon. The honeymoon I booked for you? The 2 weeks in Santorini, staying at that 5-star resort? Consider it cancelled. You can't, Vivian gasped. I can. It's in my name. I paid for it. And I'm canceling it right now. I clicked through the screens, my finance brain automatically calculating the cancellation fee. Still cheaper than letting it go through. There. Done. The blood had completely drained from her face. She looked like she might be sick. And the final vendor payments? The ones due next week for the photographer and the videographer and the cake? I continued, my voice unnaturally calm. I'm canceling those checks. They can pursue you for the balance owed. Elena, please, Derek finally spoke up. This is fair, I said. This is fair. I've been funding your wife's lifestyle for years, and I'm done. She wants to know where my husband is? He doesn't exist because I've been too busy being her personal ATM to have a life. Tears were streaming down Vivian's face now, black mascara running with them. Good. Let her cry. I'd cried plenty over the years, always in private, always alone. You're ruining my wedding, she choked out. No, I said, and I felt strangely light, like a weight I'd been carrying had finally lifted. You ruined it yourself when you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone. I just decided to stop paying for the privilege. I looked around at the assembled guests, at their shocked faces and open mouths. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone. The bars paid through midnight. After that, you're on your own. I set my wine glass down on a nearby table and walked out. No one tried to stop me. I made it to my car before I started shaking. Sat in the driver's seat in my bridesmaid dress and let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down for years. Anger. Hurt. Betrayal. And underneath it all, a strange sense of liberation. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Vivian. Then Derek. Then numbers I didn't recognize, probably wedding guests calling to tell me what a terrible person I was. I turned it off. I drove home in silence, parked in my usual spot, climbed the stairs to my condo. Inside, I took off the bridesmaid dress, took off the painful shoes, washed off my makeup. I ordered pizza because I could, because I wanted to, because I was done with ramen. And then I sat on my couch and looked at my bank accounts. The damage was worse than I'd thought when I saw it all laid out. Years of expenses, carefully documented in spreadsheets because that's who I am, the responsible one, the one with spreadsheets. Vivian's mortgage payments. Her tuition. Her car insurance. Her credit card bills when she forgot to pay them. Her medical expenses. Her lifestyle. And then the wedding costs, itemized in painful detail. $87,000 total. I'd told Vivian 60, but there had been so many extras, so many little additions that added up. I'd bankrupted myself for someone who saw me as boring. As pathetic. As someone to mock in front of 300 people on the night I'd made possible. The fury came back, cold and clarifying. I spent that night making a plan. Not a revenge plan, exactly. A survival plan. First, I called the bank about the loans, explaining the situation. There were options for hardship deferment, they told me. Not ideal, but possible. Then I looked up bankruptcy attorneys, though I hoped it wouldn't come to that. I made a budget, a real budget, for my life alone, without Vivian's needs factored in. It was going to take years to recover. Years. But for the first time in forever, I was planning for my own future. Not hers. Mine. The next morning, my phone had 247 notifications. I ignored them all except for one text from Marcus. I saw the video. Are you okay? Call me. Video. Of course someone had filmed it. Of course my breakdown had become entertainment. I didn't call him yet. Instead, I took a long shower, made coffee, and finally turned on my phone to check the damage. The video was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Woman cancels sister's honeymoon at wedding had gone viral, with millions of views and counting. The comments were divided. Some people called me a monster. A bitter, jealous shrew who couldn't stand to see her sister happy. They said I'd ruined the most important day of Vivian's life over a joke, that I was petty and cruel and unforgiving. But others? Others told their own stories. Stories of being taken advantage of by family. Of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one everyone turned to until they were bled dry. Of sacrifice and boundaries and learning to say no. Good for her, one comment read. Family doesn't mean doormat. The audacity to mock the person funding your wedding, another said. She had it coming. I read through them with a strange detachment, like they were about someone else. Maybe they were. Maybe the Elena who walked out of that ballroom was someone new. My door buzzer rang around noon. I considered ignoring it, but something made me answer. Elena? It's Derek. Can we talk? I debated. Then hit the button to let him up. He looked terrible when I opened my door. Still in his wedding clothes from the night before, wrinkled now, his tie loose. His hair was a mess. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Can I come in? He asked quietly. I stepped aside. We sat in my living room, the silence awkward and heavy. He kept twisting his wedding ring, a nervous gesture that made me sad for reasons I couldn't quite name. She's devastated, he finally said. Good, I replied flatly. He winced. Elena, I know she was wrong. What she said was cruel and uncalled for. But canceling the honeymoon was my right, I finished. I paid for it. It was my money to spend or not spend. It's not about the money. It's completely about the money, Derek. I leaned forward. Do you know how much I've spent on your wife over the past 3 years? Do you have any idea how much of my own future I've sacrificed? He looked down. She told me. After you left. She told me everything. Did she tell you that I'm $60,000 in debt? That I liquidated my retirement fund? That I've been living on ramen and frozen meals for months so she could have fresh flowers delivered to her apartment every week? No, he whispered. She said you'd helped with some expenses, but... Helped. The word tasted bitter. I didn't help, Derek. I funded her entire existence. And last night, she thanked me by humiliating me in front of everyone we know. She was drunk. She didn't mean it. Yes, she did. I felt tired suddenly, the adrenaline of the previous night fading. Drunk words are sober thoughts. She meant every word. She thinks I'm pathetic. Boring. Sad. And maybe she's right. You're not. I've been living her life instead of my own, I interrupted. For 3 years, I've been so focused on taking care of her, on making sure she's happy, that I forgot to build my own happiness. That's on me. But I'm done now. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then, what can we do to make this right? I almost laughed. Make it right? Derek, there is no making this right. You can't unsay what she said. You can't give me back the years I spent or the money I'll be paying off for the next decade. It's done. So that's it? You're just cutting her off? I'm setting boundaries, I corrected. Something I should have done years ago. Vivian is an adult. She has a husband now. She has a job, even if it's part-time. She needs to learn to live within her means, and I need to start living my own life. She's your sister. I know. And I love her. But love doesn't mean letting someone bleed you dry while they mock you for having nothing left to give. He left shortly after that, looking defeated. I felt bad for him. He'd married into a mess without fully understanding what he was getting into. But that wasn't my problem to solve. The calls and messages kept coming. Vivian called 16 times that day. I didn't answer. Her messages ranged from apologetic, "Lena, I'm so sorry, I was drunk, I didn't mean it," to angry, "How could you do this to me on my wedding day?" to desperate, "Please, we need to talk, I can explain everything." I didn't respond to any of them. I did respond to Marcus when he called that evening. "So," he said. "Hell of a weekend." Despite everything, I laughed. "You could say that. Are you okay?" "Really? Was I?" I took inventory. I was broke. I was probably about to lose my entire family over this. My name was being dragged through the mud on social media. My sister hated me. "I think so," I said, surprised to find it was true. "I think I'm going to be okay." "Good. Because you did the right thing, Elena." What she did was unconscionable. Half the internet thinks I'm a monster. Half the internet is wrong about everything. The people who matter know the truth. We talked for an hour, about everything and nothing. It felt good to just exist with someone who didn't want anything from me. The week after the wedding was surreal. I went to work, where everyone had seen the video but no one knew what to say. My boss called me into her office, and I braced myself for a reprimand. Maybe the viral video made me look unprofessional? Instead, she closed the door and said, "I hope your sister learned her lesson." I stared at her. "I saw the video," she continued. And I saw your dedication to this job even when you were clearly under enormous stress. You're one of my best employees, Elena, but you've been burning out for months. I should have said something. I'm sorry if I... Don't apologize. I'm giving you the week off. Paid. Go figure out your finances, talk to whoever you need to talk to, and come back when you're ready. I almost cried right there in her office. I used that week to see a financial advisor who helped me create a realistic plan for getting out of debt. It would take 5 years of strict budgeting, but it was possible. I met with a therapist who used the word codependent a lot and gave me exercises about boundaries and self-worth. And I finally, 3 weeks after the wedding, agreed to meet Vivian. She suggested a coffee shop near my place. Neutral ground. When I walked in, she was already there, looking small and nervous in the corner booth. She'd lost weight. There were dark circles under her eyes. We stared at each other for a long moment. "Thank you for coming," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat down across from her, ordering nothing. This wasn't a friendly chat. "I've been trying to figure out what to say," she continued. "How to apologize for what I did. And I realized, there's nothing I can say that would be enough. What I said to you was unforgivable. I waited. I was cruel. And mean. And so wrong." Tears filled her eyes. "You've given me everything, and I threw it in your face. I humiliated you on the night you'd made possible. I'm so ashamed I can barely look at you." "Then why did you do it?" I asked quietly. She was quiet for a long time. "Then, because I was jealous." I blinked. "Jealous? Of what?" "Of you. Of everything about you." The words tumbled out now, like she'd been holding them in. "You're so together, Elena. So smart and capable and strong. You have your career and your independence and everyone respects you. And I'm just the pretty one. The fun one. The one who drifts through life without any real purpose." Vivian. "No, it's true. And when I met Derek, when I had this chance to build something real, something meaningful, I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted everyone to see that I could have something beautiful too. That I wasn't just the flaky younger sister. So you let me pay for it." She flinched. "I told myself you offered. That you wanted to help. I didn't think about what it was costing you. I didn't want to think about it. And then at the wedding, when everyone was telling me how perfect everything was, I felt like a fraud. Because I hadn't done any of it. You had." I watched her cry and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just exhaustion. "And when your friends were talking about your future, about you being next," she continued, "all I could think was that you'd probably have a better wedding than me without even trying. That you'd do it yourself, with your own money, and it would be real in a way mine wasn't." So I lashed out. "I wanted to hurt you the way your success hurt me." "My success," I repeated slowly, "hurt you. I know it's twisted. I know I'm twisted. I've been seeing a therapist too, trying to figure out why I am the way I am." She wiped her eyes. "She thinks I never learned to take responsibility for my own life because you always did it for me. That I'm emotionally stunted because I've never had to face real consequences." She's probably right. Vivian nodded miserably. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you anymore. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did. What I've been doing for years. And I'm sorry." We sat in silence. I thought about everything that had brought us here. Our parents' death. My need to protect her. Her willingness to be protected. The way we'd enabled each other's worst patterns. I forgive you, I said finally. Her head snapped up. What? I forgive you. But I don't trust you. And I don't want to go back to the way things were. I met her eyes. I love you, Vivian. You're my sister, and you always will be. But I can't be your financial support or your emotional crutch anymore. You need to figure out how to stand on your own. I know, she whispered. I'm working on it. I got a full-time job. Derek and I are seeing a couples counselor because this has been hard on our marriage. I'm learning to budget and pay my own bills. It's terrifying. It is, I agreed. But you can do it. Can we maybe have coffee again sometime? Not now, not soon, but eventually? I thought about it. About the sister who used to braid my hair. Who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. Who used to be my best friend before life and death and money got in the way. Eventually, I said. But on one condition. Anything. You pay for your own coffee. She laughed through her tears. Deal. I didn't walk out of that coffee shop with closure or healing or a restored relationship. But I walked out with something more important, the knowledge that I could set boundaries and survive. That I could love someone without sacrificing myself for them. That I could choose myself. 6 months later, I'm still paying off the debt, but I'm making progress. I got a promotion at work, which helps. I started dating again, nothing serious, but it's nice to go out and have fun without feeling guilty about the expense. I joined a gym, made some new friends, started doing things just because I wanted to. Vivian and I text occasionally. Brief updates, nothing deep. She sent me a photo of her and Derek in Atlantic City, their redo honeymoon, funded by money they'd saved themselves. They looked happy. I was glad. But I was gladder for myself. Because here's what I learned that night at the wedding: sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes the person you need to choose is yourself. I spent 31 years being responsible, reliable, the one everyone could count on. I spent 31 years making sure everyone else was okay, even when I wasn't. At my sister's wedding, she asked where my husband was. The truth is, I was too busy funding her fairy tale to write my own story. But I'm writing it now. And this time, I'm the only protagonist that matters. The night I canceled my sister's honeymoon was the night I chose myself. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't kind. It definitely wasn't the gracious, forgive and forget response everyone expected. But it was necessary. And I'd do it again.